Welcome to this episode on range viewing, where today we'll be installing the LUXCUT III helical cutterhead for the DeWalt DW-735. First impressions are that this thing is really well packaged, as you can see as I have to wrangle my way through it. Inside the box there's also a few free cutter heads and screws, and a couple of T25 Torx wrenches. And once it's suitably undressed, we can have a good look at it, and the machining on this is awesome. Now, one of the reasons I chose the LUXCUT is that it comes with bearings that fit the original housing, rather than having to pull the bearings off the original cutter head. The downside is that all the carbide inserts have to be removed to install it. I'm going to remove them now whilst in the box so it catches any that I drop. And about 3 years later, they're all removed and we can crack on. So now we'll get started. Remove the 4 T30 Torx screws from the top of the planer using the T30 wrench that lives in the cover, or use your own, it's up to you. Remove the 3 very obviously coloured thumb screws and whip off the dust cover. And hey presto, there's the cutter head. There are 8 T30 screws retaining each blade, so undo those. And use the magnet on the back of the wrench to remove the cover, remove the blade, and then rinse and repeat for the other 2. Next, remove these screws and remove the locking plate. Be careful though, I think they're actually made of butter. And then they're glued in with blue Loctite. So I had quite the adventure removing one. Do what you have to do to get the plate out though, it's not needed with the new cutter head, it'll just go in the bin. Whew, geez, that was stressful. Time for a quick coffee break. Cheers. Back to business. Remove the handle and the 4 T30 screws on this side cover, collect those together and keep them somewhere safe. Undo the spring on the tensioner pulley and remove the pulley. It's only going to get in the way. Remove the 2 T25 screws on the sprockets and carefully remove the sprockets also. When you're removing these, make sure you maintain the chain spacing to make life easier at the back end. Next, remove the grooved belt off the pulley Just roll this off a little at a time, but try not to catch your fingers, it's unpleasant. Now I put a piece of scrap against the cutter head to stop it turning whilst we undo this 23mm nut and then remove the pulley. When doing this, be careful not to lose the key or the washer behind it, and put that with everything else. Time to have a wrestle with this large retaining snap ring. You might have an easier time of it with a long set of needle nose pliers, but I got there in the end. On the other side of the unit, remove the 3 T30 cover screws and expose the gearbox. Again, remove the tensioner spring and give it a little wiggle for good measure. And then remove the 2 snap rings on the sprockets. Once the snap rings are removed, slide the 2 sprockets off again, making sure you maintain that chain spacing. Next, take a 5mm Allen key and remove the 3 bolts holding the gearbox on. Slide this out and just let it hang. I took this opportunity to remove the worm drive screw using the socket on the end. And then I took a sturdy offcut out of the burn bin and used it to push the old cutter head out of the housing with the help of Monsieur Amer, slowly but surely. Once out, drop it dramatically on your bench whilst you consider salvaging the bearing off it for the future and put whatever's left in the bin. Now to slide the LUXCUT III into the housing. This offered a bit of a challenge as there isn't anything to support the cutter head for you to knock it in. So if you have a friend handy, you can get them to hold the cutter head in line whilst you drive it in. Alas, I don't have any friends, which is why I'm sitting here making YouTube videos. So I raise the planer up and slide the box underneath to support the new cutter head, in line with the receiving hole. No giggling. Next, Monsieur Amer makes a reappearance in unison with a more conveniently sized hardwood offcut to gently tap the cutter head into place. Make sure not to just wail on the axle, try use the bearing. Eventually the timber was hitting the frame before the bearing was fully seated, so I finished it up with an appropriately sized socket. I think this was a spark plug socket with the rubber removed to get to the depth. Once the cutter head is settled into its new home, throw that difficult snap ring back on to keep it there. Now just do the reverse of everything you did to get to this point. Install the worm drive on the cutter head, gearbox on, bolts in, washer and sprockets on with appropriate chain spacing, Easy snap rings on, pulley tensioned, cover on, and take a breath. I chose to reinstall all 4,326 cutter heads at this point because I have soft little hands that the insert will probably cut if I try to turn them with the pulley and drive belt installed. I used a magnetic bit holder with a T25 bit to start the screws, and then chucked the bit up in a drill with the clutch at its lowest setting. And then finally hand tightened each with a T25 wrench. Take a minute to admire the beauty, then crack on. Washer on, key in, pulley on, .23mm nut on and tightened with that piece of scrap. Belt on, check you still have fingertips. Sprockets screwed in. Tension at tension. To cover on. Dust cover and thumb screws. Height handle and cover in place and screwed in. Time to take it for a spin, pun intended. I hope this video helped with your installation. If you were a fan, please consider liking and subscribing and enjoy your new improved planer. I'm certainly happy with mine. Take it easy.